to Stories of Transformation, a NRCDV Radio podcast production. I am your host, Yvonne Ortiz. Today, March 8th, is International Women's Day, a global day of recognition and celebration marking the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. At NRCDV, we celebrate International Women's Day by commissioning or purchasing a piece of artwork made by a woman or a collective of women that honors the struggles and successes of gender equity and justice. This year's artist, Perla Sofia Gonzalez Marinel-Lo, provided us with a portrait of her granddaughter, who is a first-generation Latina teen and young activist. We were so captivated by the story behind the painting that we asked the subject to be our guest on today's show. Anisah Gonzalez is a young Latina Muslim woman, spoken word artist, social justice activist, and animal lover who has won poetry and spoken word contests. She is also the subject of the painting Anisah, First Generation Latina Teen, Human and Civil Rights Spoken Word Artist, Muslim, which can be viewed on our website at nrcdv.org/IWD. Hi, Anisah.
Hi.
I'm so excited to meet you.
Oh, yeah, I'm really excited too. Thank you for having me.
So my first question, and this is something that everybody wants to know in our office, what was your reaction when you learned that your portrait made by your beautiful grandmother, Perla Sofia Gonzalez, that was commissioned by our organization to be featured in all of our International Women's Day materials?
Honestly, I mean, I'm a very outgoing person, but I also don't really like being the center of attention.
Huh?
So, one thing is, being part of community and interacting with people and being in a group dynamic. And then another, having your face, being the face for International Women's Day for your organization. And so at first I was like a little bit scared. I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to be looking at my face. And, it was a little bit strange for me at first, but, I was really happy that, my abuela got her painting was picked for from your organization. And so, I was really happy for her. And so, of course, I was, really happy about that. So it's going to take some adjusting, though.
You're famous now. And let me tell you, everybody loves it. Everybody loves your portrait, not just because of your physical beauty, but what it means. It's your abuela is so proud of you. It shows in the portrait, and you look so strong and so determined. And that's one of the reasons that we're so excited to have you, share a little bit about yourself. I know that as Latinos here in the United States, it's really hard. It's really hard for us. I know that you grew up here in the States. I grew up in Puerto Rico. So tell me a little bit about growing up here in the States as a Muslim Latina. That must have been difficult.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a very unique experience just due to the fact that I grew up in the Muslim community for the first 12 years of my life or so. So I was very, sheltered and in the Muslim community. And being Latino and being Muslim in those intersections can be very difficult because when you're part of the Muslim community, it's, especially in the community I grew up in, it was majority Arab or South Asian. And so I oftentimes found myself being told that, I wasn't really allowed to embrace my culture as a Latino, or I wasn't really allowed to be Latino, and people telling me how I'm supposed to talk and how I'm supposed to act. And it was very difficult in that sense. And then there was me feeling like I wasn't Latino enough because I was Muslim, because typically Latinos, are usually Catholic, Christian. That's, because of missionaries coming to Latin America and colonization and all of that stuff. And it was very strange for me. I went to public school for middle school, and I wore the scarf, the hijab, and it was very overwhelming, because I was surrounded by other Latino students and friends, and those are the people I surrounded myself with. And I oftentimes found myself feeling excluded because I was Muslim. I was viewed as, oh, well, like, are you really Latino? Like, you wearing that on your head, Latino? And so it was always from one community to the other, either not being Muslim enough or not being Latino enough, and finding a way to, find a space in between both of those became very hard. And then there was just the fact being Latino in America and being Muslim in America, you have a lot of animosity coming towards you. A lot of people, don't like Muslims, and a lot of people do not like Latinos. And you feel that. And, me as a white passing Latino, obviously I didn't get as much discrimination as a Latino because many people couldn't tell. But definitely as a Muslim, I got a lot of discrimination. And if people found out that I was Latino as well, it was kind of like they looked at me different.
So all of that, that feeling of being excluded from one community and the other. So how did you become an activist?
Honestly, I don't like to label myself as an activist per se, just because I feel like I haven't done nearly enough to deserve the title. When I think of activists, I think of people like Fred Hampton, Asata Shakur, or, even people who aren't really historical figures yet, but like the kids from the Florida shooting. And then there's some people from my area, the DMV, who are like Muhammad Tall and Tariq Touré, and they've all done so much when it comes to activism. So I feel like to call myself an activist, I would kind of be undermining the word, because I feel like I haven't yet done enough to deserve that title. But what got me interested in activism was definitely, especially through poetry. Like, I do a lot of activism through poetry. That's where most of my activism lies. And that was definitely like my experiences, first of all, like, as I said, being Muslim and Latino, having that experience, like feeling those injustices, and also like seeing the injustices. I think it was around like 7th grade when the Baltimore riots happened, and like there was a lot of police killings of innocent Black men, and that was becoming very publicized. And that's when I kind of started to become more aware of the problems we have in this country. Before, as I said, I was very sheltered growing up, so I knew they were there, but they were never in my face the way that they became around that time when I was in middle school. And so I kind of took steps to become a lot more educated on issues that I wasn't prior to that. I wasn't educated on them at all. And just becoming more informed about, at first I was trying to become very informed about Black issues, just because I feel like there was a lot of, especially in my community, the Muslim community, we didn't talk about that at all, because oftentimes, the Arab community, South Asian community, there's a lot of anti-Blackness rooted in those communities. And even the Latino community, that's something we have to work on. We have a lot of anti-Blackness rooted in our community too, and a lot of colorism. And so noticing that, I became, I wanted to become a lot more aware of the issues that, Black Americans were facing, or even Afro-Latinos, a lot of issues that Afro-Latinos were facing. And from there, I branched into a bunch of different, areas, Latino struggles, Muslim struggles, becoming more educated on everything else.
That's awesome. And let me tell you, you said that you don't feel like you can call yourself an activist, but thinking about our wonderful Dolores Huerta, she remembered that she says that every single person can change the world and is a potential activist. So even if you think that you're not an activist, but through your poetry and just through your presence, it's so powerful, and being so young, that makes you an activist, because you're giving us something to talk about and standing against, things that are wrong with this world. So you are an activist in our eyes, and at the Resource Center, we are so proud of having you. So my next question to you is, tell me about your family. Has there been any community engagement on your grandmother's part, your mother?
Well, actually, like from my, my mother's side of my family, we have a very long history of activism. My great grandmother's uncle was Juan Marinel, and he was part of the Communist Party, and he played a big part in the Communist Revolution in Cuba. And I'm personally still on the fence when it comes to my beliefs about communism, just because I had a lot of learning and unlearning to do about it. But like historically, we do have were very involved in politics, and we were very involved in activism. I think also, my abuela, she's very, she has very strong beliefs about, equality and people being treated with respect. My mother has the same beliefs as well. And I think also growing up Muslim, I grew up, my family felt very strongly about Islamophobia and, the issues facing the Muslim community. So that was something that I grew up in. So activism, I guess, has always been a part of my family in one way or another, both in my family today and historically, like the family members I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So, Anisah, we understand that you're a spoken word artist. Would you read a piece for us?
Yeah, I would love to. I have one piece. It's not titled yet. I wrote it not too long ago, so it's a little bit raw. But I'll go ahead and read it for you.
Thank you so much.
All right. He tells me my lips are tainted with temptation. I must keep them folded. Seek salvation through silence. A woman speaking is a woman sinning, sweetheart. Your voice verifies that you are vixen rather than victim. Man's destruction dances within your DNA. Remain domesticated, darling. His breath on my neck, I can feel the fright of my foremothers, but I've always been more fight than flight, more ferocious than Pharaoh, more African lioness than alley cat, aggression embedded in my abdomen, anatomically angry, don't touch me. Tranquilizers and chains still can't be tamed, another man trying to define my femininity. Says it's quiet, says it's shy, hidden, covered. Yet there is nothing more feminine than legs spread screaming in an effort to deliver what she's created. From my womb to my hands to my tongue, I give life, then nurture it, then teach it. God didn't intend for me to be modest and delicate. God intended for me to be offensive and revolutionary. He tells me about Mary, how piety and veiled are synonyms, says these clothes are protection for men and from men, but wasn't Mary covered when shunned? Wasn't it the worshippers that shouted adulteress at their Lord's plan? Does a newborn really need to speak for you to know he was God sent? Does a woman need to carry a child virgin for you to know she's miraculous? There are too many holy men who are wholly bent on being holy when it's convenient, men who don't know how to hold me, men who have solely meant to make us feel obedient in our religion, enforcing the idea that we are secondary. Read about Adam, peace be upon him, and his ignorance sought sanctuary, convinced himself that our existence is his accessory. If Eve's only purpose was to make mankind, then why is man cruel? Shoving his pistol in my mouth, demanding I swallow the ammunition, because if he can't patronize the sacrilegious out of me, he knows other ways. Tell me how you can use the words of a book that lit a fire in my body to put me out. Every single day, somebody who calls himself a father, brother, or son tries to extinguish me in hopes of damage control, so I douse myself in gasoline in hopes of damage and control. One day, my Lord reminded me I was made to be a wildfire, and ever since I haven't been too good at shrinking. He wraps his hand around my throat and demands I am polite. I assure him the only polite I am is when I pull light through the hallways of your oppressive misogyny, held up by pillars you say is our faith, our faith. You prostrate to yourself, my God has never been in favor of complacency. He has ordered me to be on the front lines with that hourglass figure. If they call you a distraction, they just hate being reminded that their time is running out. Woman, be heard. Woman, be seen. Like Joan of Arc leading an army to victory, like Juana Inez questioning the beret and priest, like Frida breaking boundaries through paintings, like Nusayba yielding sword and shield, a prophet that she was protecting. In his last attempt of control disguised as religiosity, he calls me heathen. Must be that nobody knows God like a sinning woman. And that's it.
Oh my God, Anisah. Oh my. You left me speechless. This
Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. You have a gift and you give voice to, so many through that poem, through just those, few lines. Oh my God. I love the part that it's a call to called to the front lines. Oh my God. Especially because we're celebrating, International Women's Day. This is definitely a call to action, my sister. It is. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh, you
I
are
think
so
that was
talented.
definitely, thank you. Yeah, that was definitely my point through the poem. I guess, especially like in religious circles,
Yes,
oftentimes women are kind of told that we don't really have a place to,
yes.
be in the front lines. And I just wanted to kind of basically go against that through this poem.
And now that we have, the Me Too movement, the Time's Up, it's a perfect time because there's a lot of women that also don't feel like they can be an activist, but through this movement, they have come out and they're starting to support, causes. So, oh my God, it's amazing. I thank you so much for sharing your poem with us. And I was wondering, while I was listening to you, what inspired you, or is there a person that inspires you every time you're writing a poem? What comes to your mind?
Um,
What fuels you?
I mean, I think as far as what inspires me, it would just be, the struggles that I've been through. But a very inspirational person to me. I mean, I think that obviously I've had, I have a lot of women in my life who are very inspirational to me. My mother is one of them. My best friend Fatima Williams, she's one of them. But I think if I were like to choose one person, it would be Sadia Bashir.
Mm-hmm.
She's a poet from the DMV. She's also an activist and she's an entrepreneur. And I've known her for quite some time. And we have a lot of the same struggles. Or we've had, like, she's had a lot of the same struggles that I go through. She's a little bit older than me. And, she's kind of a mentor for me for poetry. She's also Afro-Latino, so she's been through a lot of things that I can't even imagine, as far as discrimination in a bunch of different communities. But just she handles it all so well, and she's a doer. She goes out and she does. She's like feels a way about something, or she has an issue with something, or she sees an injustice, and she's immediately speaking out against it. She's immediately trying to put into action whatever she's feeling, and that's something that really inspires me. When women do, period. But it's something I saw in her a lot that motivates me to become more active in addressing issues facing women across the world.
And right now is the perfect moment. We are trying with this, movements to end gender-based violence, pay inequality, and changing stereotypes and biases, and that's what you're focusing on. And it's incredible, and I'm so happy that you're talking about a strong Afro-Latina. There's this stereotype of Latina women that, we are submissive, that we're not strong, and little by little we're changing those stereotypes. Back home, everybody knows how strong we are because we see it at abuelas, our tias. Mm-hmm. But here in the United States, for us Latinos, for Latino women, it's really hard for people to see us, as a strong woman, as leaders in our community. So I just thank you so much. You're doing such an amazing job through your poetry, just sending that message that we truly have a voice. And
thank
sometimes
you.
People focus on, in my case, in my accent and think that I also think with an accent and forget that that's just, the story of where I'm from, not the content of my brain. So I'm just so proud of you. So as a young Latina, what is your vision for the women's movement?
I think historically, the women's movement, and as far as women's rights, we've been very focused on white women, and we haven't really addressed the fact that, women of color go through a whole other, plethora of issues that white women don't have to face. And I think we're already going there. We're getting there with the intersectionality. But I think we need to do a lot more focusing on issues that Black women face, focusing on issues that Latino women face, focusing on issues that Native women face. I mean, as far as you were talking about the wage gap, and, there's actually, like, white women, they have a small wage gap in certain, like, organizations and institutions and stuff, but the largest wage gap is for Latino women. We make the least amount of money compared to men. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about the fact that women of color deal with a lot more stuff than, white women are dealing with. And oftentimes you find that in the women's movement, you'll find white women kind of equating their struggle to our struggle and equating our struggle to their struggle and kind of being like, well, we're all women, and, ignoring the fact that women of color go through a whole other set of issues that they had never had to face. So I think definitely focusing on women of color more through the women's rights movement, so I think this organization, your organization, is doing, as far as looking for women of color to interview every year and things of that nature. So I think continuing to do that, I think that's a very big deal for me.
Wonderful. Well, Anisah, I want to thank you. It's been an honor, more than a pleasure for me to just spend, this couple of minutes with you. You are an amazing woman. Your voice is so strong, and it's giving voice to a lot of women of color out there that are struggling with the same issues that we're all struggling, and so many more. So I just want to thank you for just being you, for allowing us to highlight your work and your life. I know that you're a little bit shy and you don't want all the attention, but my friend, get used to it, because you are going to go far away. Your voice is just too powerful. Too powerful.
Thank
and
you so much.
I'm so proud that you are a Latina. That's the best thing. You're going to make me cry now.
Me too.
You just listened to Stories of Transformation, a NRCDV Radio podcast production. Thank you to Anisah Gonzalez for joining me and for sharing your story and talents with all of us. Follow us on Twitter at National DVAM. And to hear more NRCDV podcasts and to access additional resources on gender-based violence and related topics, visit nrcdv.org. Stories of Transformation is an NRCDV Radio podcast production brought to you by the National Resource Center on Domestic Violence. Support is provided by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Family and Youth Services Bureau.